This is the Roman villa complex at Hambleden, dating to the end of the 3rd century AD. This is the bird's eye view. It is based on a plan by Alfred Cox, who excavated the site in 1912, together with recent information acquired by Chiltern Archaeology. We're now going to explore the site. You can see here how we've got 4 main houses and 2 wattle and daub buildings with thatch roofs around a central courtyard. We now move along the exterior wall, and we're going to come in through the main entrance. This is the first house, the main house. We've modelled the front here on the villa at Budsa. We found many pieces of brightly coloured plaster in pinks, red, maroon, green, and even green and white stripe, so it's likely that the interiors were very brightly coloured. We're going to have a quick look in the house now to see the brightly coloured plaster, and then we zoom out. You can see along the side here that the lower walls were made of flint, and then as we come round the far side, you can see that the structure of the house, there was a timber frame that was probably infilled with mortar or wattle and daub. Here there were 2 bathrooms, and you can see that the roof was made of terracotta tile. We know that the house was extended over a long period of time. This was the first section that was built, and this dates back to the 1st century AD and was probably built fairly soon after the Romans arrived in Britain. These 2 wings were added later, possibly in the 2nd century. This front section and then the back section were added later. We're now going to pan out over the rooftops, and we come to the second house. This was probably a workshop, previously a home. This section here contained a hypocaust that was built in a Union Jack style. Over in this corner we found a hoard of 294 coins that were probably buried in the 4th century. Over on this side was a small furnace that was probably the oldest furnace on the site. We now move along the exterior walls. These walls were probably built of cob or possibly of witchet. We've actually drawn the model here with tiles on the top of the wall because we found a lot of tile on the site, and the tile also would have been a good protection to the material underneath. This is the first wattle and daub building. There would have been a well on this side, and over on this side there were 2 complicated furnaces. When we look at Cox's original plan, we see 2 large slabs of stone in between the 2 main walls. So on our plan here we've drawn them as gateposts. We now come to the second wattle and daub building. This building was probably a workshop. There were 2 small furnaces in the front here, One was probably a domestic hearth, and the other one was probably used for metalworking. And now we come beyond the enclosure wall. This area here would have been a yard. There were pits here. It had been very muddy in the winter. There have been 94 infants found buried on this site, and the majority of the infants were found buried in this area beyond the exterior wall. There was one infant found buried here close to the main gateway. There were 4 here, but the majority were found beyond the exterior wall. We're now going to travel back through the site, and then we're going to come in to the 3rd house. This is the annex. The 3rd house contained a complex system of hybrid furnaces. We're currently trying to work out what the furnaces were used for, but it's likely that they were used for drying corn or possibly for drying grain as part of the malting process. It's likely that the residents of Hambleden were brewing beer on a large scale. Over in this corner was another pit known as Pit 6, and in this pit were found 3 adults and 2 children. And finally, we come to the 4th house, to the little house. We're not sure exactly what the little house was used for, but we do know that it had a tessellated floor. So it was obviously a building of quite high status. Could even have been a shrine. So you can see now the tessellated floor, which is like a mosaic of small orange bricks. And as we come into the 4th house, we can see in the corner a little pot. This is actually a reconstruction of a pot, the base of which was found at Hambleden. It's particularly interesting because on the base of the pot was found graffiti inscribed by a lady called Sitamina. We're now going to lift the pot, and you can see the graffiti on the base. This is taken from a photograph of the pot, but this is Sitamina, the first named resident of Hambleden. We take one more look at the little house, and then we zoom out. So this is Hambleden, a fascinating site, but many questions still to be answered.